It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
Hi, I'm Tom Laz.
And I'm little brother Dave Laz.
And welcome to another edition of The Laz Word. And go ahead, little brother.
This is going to be our special 6 p.m. Sunday. This is our special 6 p.m. Sunday edition.
That's right. People will get a double dose. You can take a double dose of us at 6 o'clock in the evening and once more at midnight after we've worn off.
And as we have been wont to cover the issue of politics, the law, and various other matters all over the world and in the United States and in the state of Illinois, today we are going to concentrate on the great state of Illinois. The great state. The one, the debt-ridden, the debt-ridden and great state of Illinois.
Yeah. Are you trying to give us an intro to our guest?
I'm giving a segue to our guest.
That's S-E-G-U-E with an accent aigu for those who
not
took
an
French.
accent grave.
Accent grave is the other way. Aigu. Yes.
Aigu?
Aigu.
Okay. Good to you too.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an honor to have as our guest one of the hardest working state senators in Springfield,
James Brown.
Senator Kirk Dillard. Kirk, are you with us?
I am, Tommy Dave. How are you?
Very good. Very good. We're always glad to have you on, Kirk.
Thank you.
Like I said, the James Brown of Springfield, one of the hardest working state senators who has been at it as the state senator since 1995.
It's been a good run, and it's time to make this state work again. And I listened to your intro, and with some sleeve rolling up and hard work and better decision making, Illinois once again can be a great state. We certainly are a great state today. I mean, we have so many things going for us. Transportation system, our location. We have the Great Lakes. We have the greatest farmland in America. Some of the greatest corporations are here, and we have the best people anywhere in America. And for Illinois,
those best people aren't in office
is just unconscionable.
Well, Kirk, you are now after the remap. You have taken in some new constituents in your 24th senatorial district. It used to run east and west a little bit along the southern section of DuPage County. Now you're in a little more north and south. So why don't you let our listeners know what the new and old territories that comprise your 24th legislative coming up for the March 28th primary?
Sure. Like a glacier, they sort of push me north and west just a little bit. I currently represent Hinsdale and Clarendon Hills and Westmont and Downers Grove today. Under the new map, I pick up North Downers Grove. I'm delighted to pick up Elmhurst, Oak Brook Terrace, Lombard, Glen Ellen. I represent the southern part of Wheaton today, but I pick up the eastern third of Wheaton, and that's basically the map. So they push me a little bit northwest, areas that I'm very familiar with and have been around my entire life, having grown up in DuPage County. I was the DuPage County Republican chairman for a number of years, and it's interesting. I sat in the state senate with our county board chairman, Dan Cronin, when he was a state senator. Dan was my seatmate in Springfield, so your seatmate, when you're sitting there hour after hour after hour, you learn the towns and communities and intricacies of their area very well. So I'm very familiar with and have been around my whole life the communities that I'm lucky enough to pick up under the redistricting.
Now, there has been in your even recently the last 2 years, one thing you've been great on is getting, despite being virtually always in the Republican minority, about getting things done and getting things passed. For example, I think one of the things that you should probably have is really on top is the situation regarding the felons or people who commit sexual predator acts in medicine, having their licensed sex offenders in medicine barred from practicing medicine. Want to tell a little bit about that landmark piece of legislation you got through?
Last summer, I was sitting at home, and I have two young daughters. Obviously, I have a wife. I've got a mother, sisters. And my blood boiled when I read a Chicago Tribune piece that Illinois had many physicians who were practicing medicine who were registered sex offenders, and some of these cases were horrendous. These people were predators. These physicians. So I called the reporter who wrote the story and my staff immediately and just said, look, we're going to fix this. So we have passed a law in Illinois, working with the State Medical Society and the department which regulates physicians in Illinois. And if you are a sex offender, registered sex offender, you're not going to be a healthcare professional in Illinois any longer.
And one of the things that I think this would demonstrate to our listeners is this is not a partisan thing, and it shows that when you come up with good ideas and good legislation, that the other legislators will listen.
There's no doubt about that, Tom. I'm a solidly Republican principled legislator, but I've always prided myself in, being able to get things done in a Democrat-controlled state and a Democrat-controlled legislature without ever giving up those principles. Representative Jack Franks from Marengo was very helpful as a Democrat in my law with respect to banning sex offenders from practicing medicine in Illinois. So one of the things I do pride myself on is having civility and decency in state government. I believe you can be very tough. You can be decent, you can be affable, but you can still be tough. I mean, I use Governor Edgar. I was his chief of staff as that kind of an example, a very nice man, but probably the toughest politician I have ever worked with in the state of Illinois. I mean, he was fiscally disciplined. He had his moments and told Speaker Madigan no on many occasions, and he had his moments with Mayor Daley. But Jim Edgar was an affable man who got along and worked with members of both political parties, would tell the powerful mayor of Chicago and the powerful speaker no, but yet did it in a manner where he was tough but civil.
Yeah, and if I might, we're following up on that. There's a difference, I think, between what John McCain was preaching about, I can reach across the aisle, which strikes me as we can water our stuff down enough to be appealing to get enough Democratic votes to pass, as opposed to saying, you know what, as you said, I can be affable and I can be friendly, but this is a good piece of legislation and it's good for the people and it's really not a partisan thing.
And there are just some issues sometimes where you just got to say no, and you say no early, and you don't hose people around. You just tell them I will never be there. Period. And let's move on to the common topic.
And speaking of never being there, and some bad pieces of legislation. Surprisingly enough, what do you know, Kirk? Just after the last election, we suddenly needed a tax increase. I'll be darned. A 67% increase in the state income tax for you, the voter of the state of Illinois. And what do you think can be done about that 67% tax increase?
Well, first of all, you have to remember in the Senate, where I served, it was passed at about 1 o'clock in the morning, the very last day of the last General Assembly. So a terrible way to run a railroad. And it was ramrodded home on a partisan roll call. But the Senate Republicans, and I'm part of a caucus led by Senator Christine Radogno from Lamont, that has put together, and I encourage anybody to go to realitycheck.com. You can go to my website, which is kdillard.com, and look at our plan. Our Senate Republican plan is essentially we give people a menu, an option of cutting $4 to $6 billion from the state budget. You can pick and choose. But if we don't make these cuts, we will never be able to roll back what is allegedly a temporary 67% increase in the income tax. I don't believe it for a minute that the Democrats ever will make it temporary. But unless we cut $4 or $6 billion from the state budget today, we will never be able to roll that tax back. And we have a plan as Senate Republicans to do that. And we want to get rid of that 67% income tax increase. And you can do it by a couple of years of tough love. restructuring your state budget, redefining Medicaid so it's more like other states around us. Medicaid's the state's largest expenditure. We spend more on Medicaid than we do, sadly, on education in Springfield. But if we don't do that, we'll have about a $20 to $25 billion budget imbalance in the next few years. And if you think we have problems today, which we do, we will be, really at the bottom of the Grand Canyon then.
And Kirk, I'd like to point out that kdillard.com is that's kind of like the legislative site. Mm-hmm. And you also have, for your election bid, you have www.electdillard.com, which tells a lot about what you intend to do, what you have done, and why people should vote for Kirk Dillard for re-election to the state Senate.
Got a website political and website government.
Website political, website government.
And never the twain shall meet.
Right. And we'll be right back up to this break with Illinois State Senator Kirk Dillard
on WIND.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
And that's right. You always have to remember the Bible was misinterpreted. It actually said... Jesus actually said the last shall be first and the first shall be last.
That's right.
But some people may disagree.
Some
people may disagree with that.
It was a misprint, and it really should say that.
That's correct. That's correct. And we are back on the air with Illinois State Senator Kirk Dillard from the 24th Senatorial District, now compromising a little bit the towns of Elmhurst and Westmont, and other towns along the north and south spectrum of DuPage County. And also, Kirk, we can't forget you got 8 precincts in Cook County.
Well, I do have I have the northern part of Western Springs.
There you go.
Great community. Very, very nice town.
Now, Kirk, considering what happened, I should say, up in Wisconsin, where Governor Walker had the courage to bite the bullet on pension reform, and you're seeing that apparently that they're going to have enough votes for the recall up there.
No, they've got enough signatures
to get on the ballot. Right.
Votes.
Not enough votes. And signatures to get on the ballot.
Signatures cheap.
Yes, yeah, right. And they get a lot of signatures. Illinois has a big pension problem, does it not? That it will have to face. It has to face right now.
Well, we have the biggest pension problem in implosion pending in America. Without major pension reform, public pension reform in this state, guys, we will have no money to do anything else. We won't be able to take care of law enforcement, to take care of the developmentally disabled, senior citizens, and if you think education funding, and some do believe that it's underfunded, there'll be no money for education as well. I mean, the public pensions will absorb the lion's share of the state budget, and we've got to make changes. It's not that we want to; we have no choice but to do that.
Are we worse than California?
I think we're worse than California. In fact, studies show we are worse than California, and without a doubt, we're the worst that there is.
So, what is it that you are proposing? Republicans are proposing to do about pensions in Illinois before it's too late or repair the damage?
People do need to know, and I will even give Speaker Madigan a little credit. The Democrats, their legislature, their control, but we all voted for it as well. We have for new state employees a new pension system. So all new state employees are going to be in a different pension system. There is legislation pending, really pushed by the Civic Federation, which is a group of business leaders in Chicago that would offer options to current state employees. You could stay in the current system that's there, Cadillac, so to speak, system, a good system, but you're going to have to pay more. You're going to have to pay the cost of that. Or you could go to the new system that new state employees will be in, or you can go more to a 401k system, sort of like most private sector employees do today, or those who are self-employed. So we'll have different options, depending upon what your personal situation is, and whether your spouse has good retirement benefits wherever he or she may work. We're going to have a different system. So we've got to make changes, whittle away at some $87 to $90 billion of unfunded liability that the state's facing, and we have no choice but to do this.
Now, if it's unfunded liability, it strikes me that it's obligations that have been accruing over the time. But the state apparently has chosen to take those dollars and instead of setting them aside for that liability, use them for something else.
Yes, and tragically, and there's enough blame to go around to both political parties. Although it really hit the fan, probably starting in the Blagojevich administration. Governor Blagojevich and his Democrat friends skipped pension payments to the teacher retirement system to the tune of several billions of dollars. And there is no more powerful force on earth than compounded interest. I remember talking to Governor Blagojevich. He goes, "Well, it's only a couple of $1 billion." Well, $2 billion is a lot of money, as Everett Dirksen would have reminded.
He thought $1 billion was a lot of money.
The real cost of $2 billion over the actuarial life of that is more than $40 billion. Every man, woman, and child in Illinois has had their state debt nearly quadrupled in the last 8 or 9 years. And unless we make changes to our pension system and start putting the money in that we are obligated to do so, we're going to have an implosion. And I tell current state employees that, look, I want you to have your retirement at the end. I don't want you to be like an employee of United Airlines and one day wake up and have a bankruptcy judge or some other entity telling you, I'm sorry, you contributed, you relied on this, but there's no money at the end of the tunnel. If we don't make these changes, state employees, in the future are going to not have the promises that were made to them kept, and state employees and others, including teachers, need to be at the table, but they need to understand the realities that are out there facing us.
Well, the reality is, I think the state collectively is what, $150 billion in debt somewhere. There's some over $100 billion.
Absolutely,
is what we are in debt. Is there has there been any thought offered, or conceptually? I don't think that states can do this yet, but I hope that we never have to go bankrupt as a state.
We will not do that.
Okay,
and we will ensure that we don't do that.
Okay, that's because that's actually been talked about in some circles.
It will take some very difficult decision-making and leadership, and there will be a few years of pain that will be out there.
Well, and people are going to say, well, that's something. It's your fault, Kurt. Not you individually, but collectively, that's the politicians' fault and things like that. But in a manner of speaking, Kurt, the people should have been demanding and looking at this a long time ago. I also feel, and starting to raise the issue.
Right. The first real red flag, Dave, that was
it's like a third rail. It was always like a third rail when
absolutely.
It comes to, and now we're paying the price.
Everybody's inclination, was sadly, well, we have these other priorities. We've got to take care of education. We got to take care of senior citizens, and pension funding is not glitzy, but now it is. It's going to eat up, and the goose that laid the golden egg is seriously sick, and we've got to fix that goose. And we have no choice but to do this. As far back as 1994, when Governor Edgar was governor, he actually said, wow, we got a time bomb coming here. And he set up a pension repayment schedule that probably should have been, in retrospect, ironclad. If one thing, whatever we do here, we have to make it almost impossible to alter whatever our plan is, so that future governors like Rod Blagojevich cannot make the payments, and even worse than that, raid pension funds for money. But back in '94, a payment schedule was set up, and it was in just a few years later not followed any longer.
Well, what you're basically saying is you want government to live like the average person. The average person says, this is how much money I brought home. I may want to go out to dinner tonight, but I can't afford it.
Going through that right now in the Dillard family household. We renovated our kitchen, and I'm telling the children, guys, guess what? We're going to be eating a lot at home, and we're going to be eating a lot cheaper, and maybe not all the things that you're accustomed to, because we have to pay back. We have to pay back the appliance.
Yeah, but guess what? This beautiful kitchen.
Right. Well,
why? You got to use a little psychology. You got to put the spin right. Kids, why would you want to even go out to eat?
Right.
When we have this beautiful kitchen.
I also put the big warning on them and my wife that there will be no really extravagant vacation for a while.
Because you want to live within your means. What a novel idea.
Correct, absolutely. And everybody, in their personal life, knows what their budget is. And, you can't be all things to all people. And the state of Illinois needs to live within its means like every one of your listeners does.
And it's the state of Illinois is not this entity. The state of Illinois is us.
I hate the use of that term. Well, the government will take care of me. The government will do this. The government's gonna I'm looking to the government. No, you're looking to the people. That's what you're actually looking to.
Every child today born at Good Samaritan Hospital in Downers Grove is going to be born into a world of about $40,000 of debt that has been heaped upon them by the state of Illinois. So. This debt is all of ours, and it's about $40,000 ahead.
Okay, Kirk, when we come back on the other side of the news and traffic at WIND 560 AM on The Last Word, we'll be back with Kirk Dillard, Senator.
They're lawyers, so they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
Welcome back here at 560 AM WIND on The Last Word, where we're actually, in this particular case, giving the last word to State Senator Kirk Dillard, 24th Senatorial District and candidate for re-election in the 24th Senatorial District. We'd like to remind you that Kirk's website, his political website, to help out and look at material for his re-election is www.electdillard.com, and then we have the legislative site, www.kdillard.com. So go on both, and you can see all that Senator's accomplishing.
I'd say they could look on the website and see where he stands, but he always stands on his own 2 feet.
That's right. Yeah, you can't stand on a website. You might break it.
That's right.
Kirk, we'd like to talk about, when we talk about the fact that we have all this tremendous debt in the state now, there's nothing better to start paying off debt than creating jobs, which creates revenue, which the state can reasonably tax, and which brings more money into the coffers. Now, our dear state next to us, Indiana, I believe the governor in the last 2 years.
Is? What? Who's your neighbor?
Oh, who's your neighbor? Yeah. Who's here? I remember that little thing on Mike Royko talked about that there used to be bar fights in Indiana, and somebody's ear got cut off, and it was who's here, and that's how they got the motto. But that's a different story. That he said he loved having his state be next to Illinois because we are as dysfunctional as the Simpsons when it comes to job creation and economic climate. The present regime, I'm just using that term lightly, doesn't seem to be doing too much in the way of job creation in Illinois. And what can you and the Republicans offer our people here?
Well, no state's ever taxed or borrowed its way into prosperity, and the best way to put money in the state treasury is to put people to work. I mean, I have a plan, and you mentioned those websites, but on there is something I call making Illinois a destination economy for job creators. And it's a multifaceted approach, but it begins with lowering the cost of doing business, of changing our climate for entrepreneurship. And I have something called Project Green Tape that would allow you to have permits expedited. One of the things I learned when I ran in the Republican primary for governor and was traveling around the borders of our state near Missouri and Kentucky and Indiana is that it just takes so long to get the thumbs up or thumbs down to put an addition on your building or to do anything in the state of Illinois. So we need to cut through a red tape in a much more expeditious fashion. We clearly need to improve our entrepreneurial climate. in this state, especially for high technology and the new kinds of manufacturing jobs that are here. So, my plan is called making this state, Illinois, a destination economy. But the bottom line is we've got to reduce the cost of doing business for especially small and medium-sized and family-owned businesses, which create about 90% of the jobs in the state. I mean, we all hear about Navistar and Boeing and Sears and Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Those are all great employers, or Caterpillar Tractor.
No, well, my thing is,
that's not where most of the jobs are. They're with small businesses.
And if you ride along,
that moved out of Chicago Heights a couple of months ago, was it, to go just a couple miles east into Indiana?
I forget.
There have been a couple of those.
But if you ride along in DuPage, if you ride along Ogden Avenue, or if you ride along Roosevelt Road, if you ride along Kedzie, or if you go along Cicero in Chicago, those stores are all small businesses, most of them. Mom and pop stores. They may have a chain. If I use an example, I mean Home Run Inn. I think a lot of people are familiar with Home Run Inn Pizza. They started out a little bar and pizza joint in Chicago on 31st Street. Tom, you played ball. Tom played ball.
Played all my Little League and Pony League ball across the street, yeah.
And now they have expanded to, I think, four or five restaurants in the Chicago area. Again, not a major employer, like you said, like Sears, or not a major employer like Walmart, but an employer nonetheless of quite a few people. That's the classic small business expansion.
They also, in my area, in Darien, have a major, they are now the number one selling frozen pizza in Chicago. And
there you go.
Not that I have anything against Tombstone or other brands, but, they're in my backyard, and they are a Chicago institution, but their frozen food factory is massive, and they're producing a lot of jobs.
Perfect. That's perfect example I want to bring up. And Kirk, before we have to call it end over here, legislative scholarships.
Yes,
that's an interesting concept that has come up recently. Would like you to comment on.
Along with my leader, Chris Verdonio from Lamont, and Representative Sandy Pihos from Glen Ellen, we've been pushing for the abolishment of this dinosaur of a program. Legislative scholarships are controversial. Now the United States Attorney is looking at a couple of my former colleagues and the way they doled them out, but it costs $14 million a year, and nothing is free, as my grandfather taught me. Everyone that has a child at the University of Illinois or Eastern Illinois or Chicago State, or you name the university, Western Illinois, where I went, is paying more because somebody's taking up a seat there, and the $14 million cost is essentially getting absorbed by the other students and their parents. And this program is controversial, and we got plenty of great programs for scholarships, and they ought to be given out by professionals, not politicians.
Kirk, we were so glad to have you on, and glad that you're going to be here. Hopefully you're going to be here again. We're definitely going to have you back here, and we have to say adieu at WIND 560 AM.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for the last word. Tom and Dave.
Well, we are back here at the last word on WIND 560 AM, and I'd like to finish up with a comment or two about State Senator Kirk Dillard. Tom, we've known the senator for a number of years, and we really encourage you, those of you especially in the 24th Senatorial District, to go to Kurt's website, www.electdillard.com. That's the political website, because he is facing primary opposition this time around. And you can check out his legislative accomplishments on www.kdillard.com. But Tom and I are fourth square, 100% behind sending the hardest working man in the Senate back to the Senate.
We really don't care if you go to the website.
That's true.
Or you don't go to the website.
Just vote for the man.
Just make sure you go out on the election day and you vote for the man to stay as the senator. That's what
true.
counts.
That's what counts in the greatest state in the
I was even going to vote for the man, even though I don't live in the district.
You're not even alive anymore, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
No, the right to vote. The right to vote is something that's very sacred to every American.
It's so sacred you get it after.
And just because you die doesn't mean that you have to forfeit the right to vote.
Well, I always said to an atheist, the proof of life after death is Chicago.
That's right.
And that comes back to vote. No, we got to have a little. You know what?
One of these
we got to
days
have a little reading.
We got.
We're going to try again.
I'm having a meeting with the guys right now, but maybe we'll talk another time sometime.
That's true. One time I got to get. I'm still going to find that book. I'm still going to get it somewhere on Amazon or somewhere, the Election Chicago style, and maybe now and then we'll bring up little excerpts of some of the more interesting histories of elections in Chicago.
On a point of personal privilege,
granted,
personal information.
That's our show. I can grant anytime.
Last week, the Greatest Generation lost another of its members in the form of my father-in-law, and he was a World War II veteran and suffered from Alzheimer's and advanced dementia and some other problems. And I'm bringing this up as a kind of a public service because my mother-in-law and my wife and I and my son and my daughter, we really did a lot of scrambling around because he wanted to be buried in the Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery for veterans down by Joliet. And you can't get in and get a spot unless you can show you were honorably discharged. And it was we were going crazy trying to find what veterans today would call a DD 214. But you're showing that you were honorably discharged from the military. So considering that you could have a car accident, you could have a stroke, cerebral aneurysm, heart attack, all I want to suggest is for everybody, get your important papers, keep them in one spot, and tell somebody, your wife, your husband, your significant other, your children, that these are where these papers are in case they ever need them. Because if you come to a situation where you can't communicate, try to avoid the situation that we went through. And that's my point of personal privilege.
And if you have any questions, some legal questions on this, send it to the last word at yahoo.com.
Mm-hmm. Be happy to talk about that. And I'm singling out my father-in-law, but I know that there are Greatest Generation men and women who are dying off every day, and my hat's off to them because if it weren't for them, who knows what the world would be like.
That's right.
So, what else do we know?
Well, we know about the upcoming. By the time this is heard, it'll be over.
Perry has dropped out.
And Palin, you know that Sarah Palin said, I'd vote for Newt Gingrich in South Carolina.
And now Perry's going to vote for Newt Gingrich, except not in South Carolina. Well, maybe.
So, you want to make any predictions? I said by the time we're going to be heard.
Well, what's going to happen is
it'll be over.
No, we were talking about it was interesting how Romney won Iowa. And now it turns out that the real winner in Iowa was Rick Santorum. But it's, and now with the final vote in, Rick Santorum has apparently won Iowa by a scant 30 votes. Why is it that Romney won, but, Santorum won by a little, dare I say, media bias.
Didn't Romney win that night that I remember, Romney won by 8 votes.
Yeah, it was.
It was not a scant 8 votes.
No, it was
8 votes.
Yeah.
And again, we have our little biased media segment over there. But actually speaking, I have to say I show a little surprise over here that Sarah Palin would endorse the Eye of Newt, and the Eye of Newt will be watching over us if he becomes president. Or
for you Monty Python fans. From the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He turned me into a newt. Well, I got better.
Is that how we got that way?
That's it. But I look at, the Ron Paul people are going to be in it till the end because they're fanatics, and they would maybe even vote for Obama or stay home if Ron Paul wasn't done.
Well, what's interesting is that I don't know what's going to happen with South Carolina, but most recent national GOP poll now shows Romney at 30% and Gingrich at 27%. So,
Gingrich is even leading in polls in South Carolina.
South Carolina now, it's turning around?
I would say.
Fascinating. Politics in the United States is always fascinating. We'll be back to talk a little bit more about it here on The Last Word, 560 AM WIND.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Yes, indeed. That is Tom and Dave here at 560 AM WIND. And going back to Republican presidential politics over here, we are now down to 4. We are down to Santorum, Gingrich, Romney, and Paul. Now, I'm kind of putting Ron Paul on the side.
Yeah, he's an entity unto himself with his own following.
So the question is, politics being what politics is, we will not know about it for some time, but I am sure that with the speed after the last debate that came about with Perry suddenly dropping out and endorsing the eye of Newt, that something had to be. There's a quid pro quo over there.
Well, not only that. I mean, I think Perry saw the writing on the wall, and he's
part of that.
His money's starting to dry up, and he's cutting his best deal that he can.
That he can right now. So the question right now is there going to be a coalescing of because all we have left is Santorum really after that. So it's going to be really of the mainstream vote. I said not the Ron Paul vote, and I'm not denigrating people voting for Ron Paul. I'm just saying that.
And if any of you Ron Paul people are out there and are fanatic and want to comment or email us, it's thelastword@yahoo.com.
Correct. But so we're going to be down in the way to 3, and I am wondering if after South Carolina, Santorum's going to drop out.
Well, let's assume the Newtster. Let's assume the Newtster
wins South Carolina.
South Carolina.
So I was saying, since this is going to be heard afterwards.
In recent polling, he was viewed as being ahead of Romney
in South Carolina. That 8 people, you know which polling or which one particularly did it? So is the phase starting to shift now? My feeling is that, and I think Newt can beat. I know a lot of people say no, but Newt started out, I think, with 4% when we're going back a few months ago. Newt was almost an afterthought.
And then he had problems with his staff, and he's come back.
And unfortunately, he still has
this business with his second wife.
Oh, please.
I mean, how far back do you want to go on anything? And everybody always keeps saying America is a very forgiving country. And if you say, look, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I did this, I did that. And I think that Newt has shown by his current marriage with Callista and the way he's raising his kids and all, I'm not going to say, because he had problems with wife number 2. To me, that's ancient history. And
that's right. That's right. What do you? I mean, the question is that has been put way in the past, as far as I'm concerned. What's he doing for the country today?
How does that affect your ability to run the country today? And I think I would love to see him against Obama in a debate where Obama has no teleprompter to respond. I think Newt will eat him alive.
I know. I mean, the way he just came back. Whose question was it? That I know about race, about the unemployment rate, or about the food stamp president, and is that racist? And I just like the way he just
Yeah,
no, it's not racist.
No,
it's not racist. Talking about this in particular.
We're getting into our last minute here.
Yes,
of our
coming to
show.
the last minute of the show.
I wanted to make a quick comment about the 4 Marines who were YouTubed urinating over the body. But I don't think it was right. But as you look, you're talking about taking 18, 19, 20-year-olds filled with vinegar and that other substance that they used, and you put them in these stressful situations where somebody's going to kill you. I think I would discipline them a little bit, but I'm not going to go bowing like Hillary Clinton and everybody else. Not to somebody who's willing to cut my head off. And that's my last word.
At the last minute here on 560 AM WIND. Next week, afterwards, Representative Randy Ramey will be our next guest.
Have a good week.